Well, thanks everyone for joining. Little quick recap. Tyler Zammit again from Precision Resource Group. I'm joined by Lee. Lee is one of our L&D managers here at Precision Resource Group. We're here to talk all things L&D and training. Hot topic within recruitment. It's something that's really highly sought after with a lot of recruitment agencies. So I'm really looking forward to this chat. Why don't you kickstart us off, Lee, by giving us a little bit of an introduction about yourself and specifically about what you do.
Yeah, cool. So L&D manager here at PRG. I've been with PRG for about 5 months now. Worked in recruitment for about 8 years now in total.
Sure.
Yeah, I know, long time.
Showing your age.
Won't talk about that. Before then, worked in banking and then worked in a call centre as very first job, albeit both kind of jobs or both careers had an element of training to it. Even if I look back to my very first job in a call centre, I probably spent 1.5 years of that job in a training role, teaching and coaching all of the new starters that joined. Don't really know whether that was through my choice or whether I was pushed. I think that was more of a push, but it's stuck with that training vibe since then. So yeah, with PRG for the last 5 months, really enjoyed my first 5 months here. And looking forward to the next couple of years in terms of some exciting stuff happening.
Yeah, nice. And we'll go into that in a second, actually. That's some of the exciting things coming up. But you mentioned that you've been with us 5 months. Why don't you give us a little bit of an insight? Because you're fresh, right? You're fresh to PRG. You're fresh to the own journey yourself. So why don't you give us a little bit of insight into your journey with us so far?
Okay. So our first week started off jumping in the training for our onboarding of our new starters. So we had 4 new starters joined the week before I joined. Jumped in and got involved in their sessions. So I've ran 3 now of our 6-week onboarding programs, which is basically us just to help new starters get completely up to speed with the world of recruitment and the systems, etc. So I've ran 3 of those. We've had some exciting changes. So we hired an experienced consultant in Charlotte, a Charlotte consultant to take over and completely run that 6-week onboarding for us. So doing a great job already. Really excited to have her on board. We've also had a bit of an internal move. So we've had Marcus, or for everybody else that knows him as Worm, joined us on the L&D side. He adds a really pivotal part to us, which is the system related stuff. So he's going to be covering all of the system related training, which is not just the CRM stuff, but also all of the tools that we invest in for our consultants. So it's all of the job boards, it's LinkedIn Recruiter, it's Interview, it's making sure that we can maximize those tools. Because for me, that's a pivotal part in that first 6 months, is making sure that, yes, our new people understand how to do the job, but they can also manage tools effectively. So yeah, lots of change, but for the better, and a huge focus as an L&D team for us, not only from a new perspective, but from an existing population moving forward.
Nice. So you mentioned Marcus, you mentioned Charlotte as well, as we recently joined in. I think she joined like a month after yourself. That's 3 men doing L&D within Precision Resource Group. Of course, so another person you haven't mentioned yet is Tracy as well, who pretty much set up L&D for Precision Resource Group. Give us a little bit of insight into her as well and what it's like working with Tracy.
Yeah, so Tracy's our director of people. Still heavily involved in the L&D kind of organisation, coordination and delivery as well. I still rope her into some of the sessions that we're doing. She's still looking and supporting heavily in our management population. But I think she's set a real this business around the kind of the culture and how important training is. So a person to work alongside.
In your journey, your L&D journey today, you mentioned obviously you worked within recruitment about 8 years, so work with a variety of different agencies. I won't obviously ask you to go into specifics, but what are the key differences that you've seen with how we take on L&D as opposed to other experiences?
Yeah, okay. I'd say more so from a culture perspective than anything else. I think that not so much from a training or a delivery perspective. Actually, probably the biggest surprise for me when I joined PRG is actually how ingrained training is into the culture in the business. I think that stems from all of our directors, including Tracy, in terms of driving that ethos in our business. But I think for me, where it feels different is that such an involved and such a heavy part of everything that we do, even to the point of involving others in training. So all of our onboarding program that we're running at the moment for the first 6 weeks for our new starters is actually open for anyone to join. So it's great to see that we've got experienced consultants. We had business managers join sessions this week to really get involved and also share their perspectives. So I think for me, less so on like the content perspective, but definitely more from like a culture and how ingrained and how much of a focus training is in PRG. That's really what stands out for me. And I think, in my opinion, that stems from, as I said, our directors first of all, but then our business managers really driving that and really owning that as well.
It's good that everyone like takes it so seriously, right? Because it's good that everyone who within the business, no matter what level of seniority, they all have such high focus of development themselves, development in the team. And as on the internal recruitment side, I get this from like a day-to-day basis of what's your training like, what's your L&D, and sometimes it can be quite difficult just to absolutely tell them everything about what's on offer because there is so much. Why don't you help me out, do my job for me? In your own words, why don't you describe to me the training that we do have on offer here?
Okay, I'll pick up your job for you, no worries. Don't worry. Okay, so we could talk about this all day, so I will try and condense this in a shorter answer for you. So fundamentally, we offered a blended approach across our learning and development. What I mean by that is that there's loads of things that we offer in terms of training. It's not just training work. It can be coaching, mentoring, like role play, facilitation, loads of things. It's not run a training session and that's it. Secondly, for me, it covers all seniorities in our business. For me, whether as a trainee or whether you join as an experienced manager, there should be something available for you to help you develop, stretch yourself, and push yourself further. So I've had to break that down into chunks. First chunk is that 0 to 3 week program that Charlotte is now going to be picking up and running. That for me is like an intense program for recruiters or trainees who have little or no experience to teach real skill, real fundamental parts of the job. That is core to get people up to speed. And for me, it's not just about doing your first year, it's about the consistency of doing deals after that. Then we look at the next part in our program, which is like the 6 to 26 weeks. That for me there is about how do we start to fine tune and perfect some of the things that we do. So still building on that sessions and still building on the training that you've learned in those first 6 weeks, but how do we really add and start to tweak and change and perfect those skills? From then onwards, I suppose chunk 3 for me is like anybody from 6 months on up to wanting to become a manager. Loads of training, loads of courses available, etc. But also for me here, this is where I like to be really tailored in our approach. I want us to be able to hand select how we have people, because people develop at different speeds, in different ways, and need different things. So that period there is about how do we highlight training areas, gaps, or development areas that we can help and support throughout their career. And then you've got that top tier, which is either people that want to move into management or people that are currently a manager, and looking at the programs that we run for those guys as well. So it covers any seniority in our business is probably my summary point. I could literally go on for hours about that for you, but hopefully that gives you a bit of flavour to help you sell through with people when you're chatting through about what we offer at PRG.
You're helping me out. I appreciate it. I want to talk about remote training. Coincidentally, you work in remote today, so it's fitting.
Yep.
It's quite a new thing, and it's probably one of the best things that kind of came out of the pandemic through all of those tough times that came out through recruitment. What's your general thoughts on remote training?
Oh, my general thought. Okay, so firstly, I would probably say that pre-COVID, I would say less than 10% of my training was remote. And most of that was reviews and related stuff. There was very minimal like proper training sessions that ran remotely. I think if you ask any L&D person, they'd probably choose to do it face to face for the level of interaction and engagement that you get. But actually, fundamentally, there is a real place for remote training. And actually, the pandemic, like you said, has forced teams to reconsider how they go about doing things, how they run training, and how you take all of your content and make it engaging, but on a remote basis. So yeah, I would agree. It's a positive that it's come out of it, because it's really forced L&D teams to adapt and change the way they work. I think the where we're at now is that I think we're pretty good at running face-to-face training. We're pretty good at running remote training. Our balance now is we want to ensure that our training is open and available to everybody at PRG, which means we have to try and do both at the same time. So we're now running face-to-face training sessions where anywhere between 20% and 50% of the attendees are actually also joining remotely. So actually our balance now is how do you put both together? Because what I don't want people to feel is that they have to miss out on training if it's face-to-face. Like, I can't be in that day for any reason, so I can't attend. I don't ever want people to feel like I can't attend training because of that. So it is absolutely a place for it. It adds real value in our business. My first onboarding program here at PRG was fully remote. Our balance now for me is how do we put both together to make sure that include people in training and people don't miss out.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do completely agree with you. I think by having that flexibility, by having that forward-thinking approach to remote training, it also helps me in my job, because now as a business, we can look at hires who may be further afield, who we can actually start to incorporate into this remote training. So I think essentially it's going to help a lot of businesses who kind of have that attitude. How do you kind of see L&D changing in the future? I know it's quite a broad question that, but seeing the changes obviously happen in such a short amount of time in the last 6 months, how do you see things progressing?
So yeah, I think over the pandemic has put a real focus on L&D in a good way. I think the people who weren't tracking like return on investment and what they were actually getting from training, it would have put an even more bigger focus on. I think pre the pandemic, in my opinion, in terms of order, the priority was how do we develop people's career? How do we teach them the basics? And then are we getting any return on investment from this? Actually, I think the pandemic has really forced L&D to think differently about their priorities. And actually, for my priorities and my kind of moving forward is actually first and foremost teaching people how to do the job effectively. Are we coaching them how to do the job effectively? And are we helping them to do it as effectively as they can? Then let's look at actually what return on investment are we getting from the training and all the coaching that we're doing? Because if we're running training sessions and it's not creating what we're hoping to achieve it, then let's change it. Let's tweak it.
What's the point? Yeah.
Let's not continue to do the same thing over and over again just because it's part of our program. Let's make it better. Thirdly, then, the third step for me then is that career development. How do we engage our people? How do we continue to develop them either within their role or with skills that will help elevate them up into a different role? So I think for me, the change that's happened in L&D over the last probably year and a half, for me personally, what I've seen in the industry is actually probably a shift in priority. I think L&D has gone very much back to actually first and foremost, how do we make sure that people can do the job and do the job really effectively? Then let's look at how do we tweak, change it and make the most of it. And then thirdly, how do we then really develop our people, engage our people and make sure that they feel like they're building a career in their business and in their work rather than just coming to work just to do their job. So yeah. I hope that answers your question. I think for me, a shift in priorities, but I think the pandemic has helped shift that much more quickly than I think it would do.
Perfect timing, because that's the last question, because the binmen have just arrived. Brilliant. Fantastic. Good timing, gents. Thank you, pal, for joining me on this. I found that really, really intriguing. And thanks, obviously, for everyone who's joined watching this today. This has been the third episode. We will be doing another episode in 2 weeks' time. And thank you all for watching. Take care. Thanks, Lee. Thanks, obviously, for joining me.
No worries. Cheers, mate. Take it easy.
Cheers, pal. And you. Bye-bye.
Buddy, bye-bye.